Hi there. Welcome to this mini-series on what works for women at work. I'm Evelyn Axelrod, and I'll be your guide on this exciting adventure. By day, I'm the VP of the Career Foundation, an innovative nonprofit organization driving inclusive employment across Canada. Personally, I'm interested in exploring a little more about what works for women like us so we can scale learnings and accelerate gender parity. I'm all about solutions, so join me on this year-long journey and get ready to hear inspiring stories, practical lessons, and powerful mindset shifts that will create leadership transformation. Let's get started. Hello everyone, my name is Evelyn Axelrod and welcome to What Works for Women at Work today. I am so excited to be chatting with my very special friend and mentor and an extremely accomplished coach, leadership coach in the space, Miss Daisy Wright. Daisy, thank you so much for taking the time to join me and chat about what's working for women at work.
Well, thank you so very much for inviting me. And you know, I couldn't say no to you.
That's probably why I asked. No, you've been such a mentor to me and such a guide. I am so grateful for all your advice and I know it's going to help other women who listen in on our conversation. So thank you. And you're so experienced and accomplished and have been coaching leaders for, I don't know, definitely more than 15 years, right? Maybe more, but among the many certifications that you've got, you're a certified ICF coach, career development practitioner, executive leadership coach, and recently appointed as master coach for Executive Women Network. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I want to say off the top of my head, it is so important when you have people generally, but women in particular, in your circles. And people who will call your name in a room when you're not there. And so this opportunity came around, not necessarily because somebody called my name in a room, but because I had missed the email with when they announced the opportunity, when WXN announced the opportunity. And so someone in my network forwarded it to me and said, you know what, you should try for that. So because we're talking about women, I want people to know right off the bat that it is so important for us to surround ourselves with people, with women who will champion our causes.
Oh my gosh, Daisy, and those are more than words to me, especially coming from you, because you've created a circle of women who support each other, and it's a daily nourishment to our souls. And we all thank you all the time, but it's never enough because I know firsthand how that has been instrumental in supporting me. So yes, thank you. So tell us a little bit more as we dive in about you and your journey, if you will.
Well, sometimes I don't know where my journey starts, but as you know, I grew up in Jamaica and so on. But my journey as it relates to women and women at work really got its footing, not its start, but its footing when I got the opportunity to work with UNIFEM, which is now UN Women. And I was meeting people from different cultures, different countries, and the work that these individuals were doing in the field to women, women who wanted to start their own businesses but didn't have the funding, or they wanted something as simple as a well from which to get water. And I said to myself, I am privileged in terms of the fact that if I go to my kitchen and turn the tap on, I expect water. And if water doesn't come, then I'll start complaining. And it put me in that position to say, if I can help women in whatever area of life they're in, that's going to be my mission. And so that's where it kind of took, that's where the seed was planted. And of course, my career has gone, all over the place, but I have made it full circle back to when I started my business, as I got into corporate and I realized somehow, there's this concrete ceiling that I wasn't accustomed to, didn't know anything about. I figured, you do great work, people will see you and you'll be promoted. And that wasn't happening for me. And I was not accustomed to that. I mean, I grew up in a world, in a situation where as long as you were qualified, you had the qualification, what have you, and you will move up. There's going to be competition, and the better person, the better person is going to win. But there's nothing that said, no, you can't. And it was that invisible barrier, I would say, that really got me thinking. And I told myself, I said, Daisy, there's more to life than that. And then I started to explore other things I could do. And well, my story.
And it's a wonderful story. And it's always been about empowering other people, from newcomers and youth and women and just companies and graduates and all of it. But as you look back on the getting your foot in with UN all the way back then, there was progress being made slowly. But when we come to today, World Economic Forum just released this image I can't get out of my head. And it's like really positive based on our previous data. For example, it says 10% of Fortune 500 companies are led by female CEOs, an all-time high. 10%.
Yes.
29% of CEOs and board members are women. And this is 2024, 2023 data. It's concerning that the progress has happened, but it's not happening in a fair, equitable way or on pace with anyone else. What are some of the things that you measure as progress? But also, what are some of the gaps you see in terms of advancing women equitably through to leadership?
So in terms of progress, like you say, at one point it was 0%, now it's 10, but we can't be complacent, because I was looking at the 2023 McKinsey/Lean report, and those numbers are cause for concern. And I am not sure. Sometimes we take a step back. I'm thinking in particular of the number of, say, Black women who are CEOs in the US. And at one point it was probably 6. Now it's down to, I don't know, 2 or 3.
So
so you kind of you
reversing in that area.
There is progress, but you take one step forward and then you kind of take 2 steps backward. The good thing about it, Eve, is that it's like the toothpaste is out of the tube and we can't push it back in. So as I was listening to a webinar today hosted by the Globe and Mail and the Canadian Women's Foundation and other organizations, one lady said, the pendulum swings back and forth, but it never goes back to its original place. And we can take little comfort in that, but a lot more needs to happen. And some of the strategies that I would mention that could work, and they're not new. There are like mentorship,
Mhm.
targeted skill development, and fostering inclusive cultures, to bridge the gender gap in leadership. And I'm not talking about performative action now. I am talking about real action that needs to be um, done. These are things that can be baked in or can be integrated into policies, right?
Yes.
And organizations also need to invest in the development of women by providing, and I would say providing us with opportunities to learn and grow. Because I can tell you, again, I refer to the McKinsey Lean-In report. Women are equally as ambitious as men. So people who are going to believe that we are not, or are they going to use that as an excuse to say, well, you're not too ambitious, so let's get that out of the way. We are as ambitious as everybody else, and we employees or companies, organizations should be creating spaces where women can thrive.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And also the confidence issue that oftentimes women are told, well, you need to build your confidence. But
Yes,
women are quite confident.
we are
Just,
pretty confident.
yeah.
We are pretty confident. People people just assume, and sometimes some of us buy into that,
Mhm.
but we have to look within and realize our value, realize our worth. Um, think in terms of the conversation we are having with ourselves. Are we believing the narrative that other people are saying about us as women, or I mean, you go down to, the intersectionality of, women, racialized women, Black women, what have you, we have, because we, we have been there, we have done it, and we are ready to lead. Just open that door. And
Yes.
I'll just add that when there's a supportive workplace, culture, sorry, and mentorship opportunities, like I said before, equal access to resources, and addressing, gender biases and, those kind of things. When there is a support, then the workplace will thrive. There won't be, the barriers will slowly be broken down, and women can pursue their ambition to lead.
Yeah, I love that. And there's so many things in there when you think about, I want to talk about intersectionality and experiences of women of color, but I also want to talk about mentorship and sponsorship. And we're going to save that for a second question. So tell me more about, how women of color are experiencing the workplace, because you said there's been an actual reverse
Mhm,
in the number of positions held by women of color in leadership,
mhm.
in one of the reports that you cited. So can you tell me more about that?
More about in terms of,
About what are some of the obstacles that women of color are seeming to face in the workplace that's having them remove themselves from those positions, and therefore a reduction to 2% from 6%.
mhm. Well, Matt, sorry, some of these are, some of the challenges, will show up in terms of stereotyping,
Hmm.
in terms of microaggressions, in terms of unconscious biases, and, limited access to opportunities. Those are some of the things that exasperate the the disparities. And then when we do the right thing in terms of speaking up, I mean, some of us will speak up regardless. But sometimes when we do that, and especially when we touch the topic, the uncomfortable topic of, racism and, those kind of things, then many of those who speak up, they're ostracized, and it's so unfair because I'll tell you, you know, when you start the conversation, people either become defensive, or as I said before, other people are ostracized. They're not ready to hear the uncomfortable truth. But I tell you, Eve, we have to open our minds. We have to suspend judgment. We have to become curious to know what's happening, what's really happening on the other side. And yes, the conversation is not going to be comfortable, but we have to become comfortable with we have to learn to become comfortable with things that are uncomfortable. And I remember reading a quote from former First Lady Michelle Obama, who once said that real change comes from having enough comfort to be really honest and say something very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And it's true. And not everybody's going to like that. And the whole point is, I'm not talking about somebody who at the drop of a hat, something happens and at the drop of a hat, they're going to look at it from a racial perspective. It happens, but it's not that everything that happens has that, racism label. But the reality is it happens. And because of that, because of people's perceived, because of some people's perception, they just believe that you just don't fit this mold. And, you're there working double because that's what you have been told. At least that's what I understand when I came this side of the world, because I wasn't exposed to that in Jamaica. But the point is, when you have such a heavy weight on you, where you have to be proving yourself, even if you do get the promotion, you still have to prove yourself over and over and over again. Why is that?
Yeah. It's clearly broken. It's clearly broken for people.
It is. The system is broken.
Yeah. And right now, with pendulum swinging, very, very extreme, we do need to pay attention to what works. And that's why we're doing this. What's working, so we can find what is actually making change, positive change, so we can replicate that. Whereas we're having companies who are unfortunately dismantling their DEI teams.
Yeah.
And saying DEI is actually divisive. And it's kind of an excuse to not have the uncomfortable conversations. And that's really a lack of courage, because
it is.
it's
It
going
is.
to be.
Yeah, just this evening, somebody shared an article from Fast Company, and they were addressing the same issue about, like this year, for example, Black History Month, this year was pretty quiet. 4 years ago, when it was George Floyd and all of that, everybody organization was, talking about, oh yes, we need to do this, we're going to do that. Well, 4 years later, half of them never lived up to their pledges.
Yeah.
And not only that, like you rightly said, they're dismantling DEI. And I wish people would really look at DEI as a positive. When you have a team of people from different backgrounds, nationalities, ethnicities, a company can grow. But when you put up artificial barriers, or when it is so steeped in your consciousness that, wow, he or she is from that group, so they don't measure up. And the sad thing is that many of us buy into that, start second guessing ourselves, and that's where the support is, and that's where allyship comes in. And even in talking about allyship, I listened to a TED talk by two women. I forget, one is a Black woman and another woman of Indian descent. Forgot her name. Oh boy. Anyway, they were talking about a survey that they did. And as it turned out, when they were talking about allyship, like a certain number percentage, I think 91% of people said they were allies, of white women said they were allies. But when it came down to do the actual work of being an ally, a real ally, only 9% of people. So you look at that and you say, wow, allyship is an action. You have to, and it doesn't matter, even if we come back to, so say take the white and racialized apart and say just women generally. We need to support each other much more than we're doing.
Yeah.
Right? When you get a seat at that table, make space. So make space for the next person, so you don't end up being the one and only.
Yeah.
And be genuine about it. Don't, let the competition, don't see it as a form of competition. Or don't say, oh, well, I have arrived, so I don't have any time to put my hand down to lift somebody else up.
Or you're afraid of bringing anyone else for fear that you might lose those opportunities. But there are abundant opportunities. And if they're not, you can be in a leadership role where you create those opportunities.
Create those opportunities,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And create that abundance for others, because, that kind of competition comes from a deficit mindset.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
Yeah.
Yes, we have to think in terms of abundance. And like I said, my word of the year this year is abundance. So
All right. Oh, I like
I
it.
do and say is all about abundance. So yes, you're right. When you're there, create space for the next person.
Yeah. I want to go back to you talked about policies in the workplace, because you're right, you talked about very performative sort of actions that have been happening over the years, and how quickly people started to dismantle these diversity groups and such. And people who were really serious about it, people who were wanting to make change, looked at their policies, did assessments, challenge their practices in the workplace to make it more inclusive for everyone. And I believe that when things are inclusive and equitable for women, they're inclusive and equitable for men, for people with disabilities, for people of color, you're creating better work environments. And so those are way beyond performative.
Yes.
And let's go back now to your mentorship and sponsorship. And what I've observed, the sponsorship and mentorship happens so organically for men. It's about relationships. It happens over lunch or beer at the pub or on the golf course. And it's just based on relationships. But when we talk about allyship, when we talk about sponsorship in the workplace for women, we sort of default to a very structured program, and it's 1 hour a month, if that, and so can you talk to us about how we can really integrate those kind of measures in the workplace that will make workplaces better for women?
Sponsorship is the difficult piece
Mm.
because, first of all, whoever puts their hand up to say they're going to be your sponsor, they're putting their reputation on the line. So what it means is that they have seen something in you why they're going to do that. They're the ones who will, as we said before, call your name in the room when you're not there. You know who would be good at that? Eve. But it's not easy to get a sponsor for sure. But what we could do as women is to again cultivate the relationship. It always starts with the relationship. Get to know the individual. And I refer again today to the Global Male webinar about equity in the workplace. And it was interesting to hear what one lady who is a former CEO, I can call her name, Jackie Parchment, who is a former CEO of Mercer, Canada.
Mm.
And she said that your sponsor does not have to be a senior person. The sponsor is somebody who knows you and is connected to somebody who has the power, right? So you can cultivate that relationship. And she said one of the opportunities she got was someone who was her executive assistant or her admin heard of an opportunity and said to, I guess, the senior person, you know what, Jackie would be great for this. And then she reached out to Jackie. So sometimes we tend to think that sponsorship has to be that hierarchy where it has to be a senior person. No, it's somebody who is in the know. Somebody who knows somebody who can make the decision. And you have to be methodical in terms of creating that, at least planting the seed for such opportunities. So get to know, have conversation with, if you know somebody who you figure you would want to have as your sponsor, no harm in having a conversation with that person. But go have the conversation, go with a plan. Not to say, oh, well, I would love you to be my sponsor, but tell that individual who you are, what it is you have done, what your career goals are, and let them know that you have been watching them. You have seen how they have grown. You have seen how they have sponsored other people. And like you said, men tend to get sponsorship more often than women. Obviously, it's because there are less women, the higher up you go. And if we had more women there, then I imagine we would have, more women as sponsors. Having said that, it doesn't have to be that because it's a woman, it doesn't have to be in terms of gender. It can be just about anyone. But I think it starts with building the relationship and finding ways to nurture that, that relationship and see what happens. If we can have more people doing this over time, then the gap will narrow, right? It may take us 200 years to, even they have said, it's going to take 200 and how many years, 82 or what have you, for us to have gender parity. But because it will take that long doesn't mean we should stop. In fact, we should speed it up.
Yeah, absolutely.
We should put systems in place that can make that happen sooner.
And I want to talk about some systems you've put in place closer to the end of our discussion. But what we're talking about is how relationships can actually be sort of a catalyst for massive and exponential change if we let it. And yeah, I remember, I don't know who said this, but they said be the change you want to see in the world.
Yes,
One,
it was Gandhi.
right, and
Mhm.
right, and then the other one was, and it might have been him as well. The political is personal. It is, and you have the power to make those changes in your circle of influence, in
Mhm.
your networks, and that's going to, when you multiply that over all of our people listening and the people who care about this issue, we could achieve those things, within our lifetime. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's
Absolutely. But
wonderful.
it takes courage.
Yes,
It takes somebody who is going to be courageous to say, regardless of, I am putting myself out there because this is the right thing to do.
yeah, absolutely.
And that applies to the whole DEI
Yeah,
conversation.
it's
It's
the
easy for people to twist things around and talk about meritocracy and and all those kind of things. When people speak about and I'm kind of tired of explaining this to some people. DEI is not about um a number, getting somebody there to say, at least, the optics, we're looking good because we have that one person. No, it means leveling the playing field, in that open the door so that others might come in. You're not going to lower the standard.
no.
No, but they're going to be in that room and everybody's going to compete, and the best person wins.
We're
Now,
so
of course,
aligned on that.
sometimes they're going to look at it and say, well, you, and I would say, if they have two equally qualified person and you realize that your team is of one grouping, well, who should you choose?
Right. That's the
You know?
question. And
Yeah,
that's the question that leads to an understanding of how valuable diversity is in the workplace, right? And then you'll make the easy choice. The easy choice is I need more value on my team. I need
exactly.
more diverse perspectives on my team. But
Exactly.
it isn't about lowering the standards. It's
No,
about bringing in all of the qualified people, a diverse group of qualified people, and let's choose the best ones from there.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
but
totally agree with you. Yes.
yes, but
So,
it's so easy for people to use that narrative.
yeah.
And it's insulting. It's insulting to people who are brilliant,
Yes.
and who earned the space.
Yes.
For people to think, oh, you're just the token. No, I'm not. Because half of the times, such a person is even more qualified than some of these,
Thank
the
you for saying that. I have always felt it is so insulting because you don't know how hard I worked to get here.
yeah, exactly.
And to suggest that I've got here on the color of my skin, and
Yes,
that applies to everyone.
of
Everyone has
course.
worked hard, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. I love this conversation, and we can do just a session on this alone. But I want to go to something on skill development and getting ourselves ready, because it is an individual's journey as well, where workplaces have a level of responsibility, but so do individual women, individual people, everyone. And so I want to ask you a question, which is one of the things that's driving my research. What I'm trying to find out is, what are some of the mindset shifts that you have observed or have experienced yourself that has made a difference in how you saw things, that enabled you to grow or get past some obstacles? What are some of those shifts that were previously, things seemed so challenging
Mhm.
until you started to think of it differently?
So I think for me personally, as I said at the beginning, I grew up in an environment where, first of all, I had strong, my mom was a strong, confident little lady, right? And we kind of grew up in that
Yeah.
in that environment where, we saw women doing things, they were the leaders in the community. And and it followed because I look at my aunt who is still, is still alive. I look at my late sister, and they were leaders in the community. So, we kind of say, well, you know what, at some point we are going to take, we're going to take over. And not just my family. It was like the the district where we grew up. So we saw that. We went into um into the workspace, and we saw that there were no limits to,
Mhm.
even, yes, for sure, men were at the top and stuff like that, but we knew that we could, if we worked or did what we had to do, then we would eventually be there. And I'm not painting a kind of Pollyanna perfect situation. No, we do have our issues, but the mindset there was, it was nothing had told me or us in general that there's going to be a limit. So we kind of have that confident approach to to our own career growth. However, with that said, we also have to have conversations with ourselves.
Mm.
And it's to remind us of who we are as women. We are capable. We can do it. And then you have to tell yourself that as well. That's the mindset, to say, I can do it. And then we have to, I would say, I was going to say cultivate, diverse skills, but listen, we have the skills. We have studied and studied and studied. We don't need any more study. Just open the door and let us in. And when you have allies, when you have people who support you, you can break down, you and your allies can really, really break down doors, right? Don't do it on your own. If you do it on your own, then, things might not happen. But I want women to remind themselves that they are worthy, they have value, they are ambitious, and they're just waiting for that opportunity. And if the opportunity is not coming, then go and break down the door. When I decided I was going to go into my business, like I said to you, it was being in that corporate space and not growing, and I'm somebody who, once after 3 years in a position, I'm looking to grow. And if it's not coming, I start kind of saying, well, what's happening? But I am so glad the day when I decided that, when I gave myself a talking to and said, Daisy, there is more to you than all this BS. And that's when I engage a career coach, and we're discussing things that I could do. And two of the things showed up was that I could teach, and I could write, because I always loved writing, and I spent some time in public relations, right? So and when those two things collided, I ended up on the teaching side, I ended up getting an opportunity to teach at Sheridan College. The same time I was starting my business on a part-time basis. And I say this, to people, that don't let people put limits on you. I remember somebody said to me when I told her I was gonna teach. She said, "Who told you you could teach?"
Oh,
I said, "Watch me."
I love it.
Yeah, because when anybody tells me that I can't, I am gonna prove them wrong,
Yeah.
right? I'm not saying everything I attempt is going to work out, but I have to attempt it. And if you tell me it can't happen, Eve, I am gonna prove you wrong.
It's the best motivator.
Ex- Exactly, exactly. So to come back to your question in terms of some of the things that women leaders can do, as I said earlier, is to one, seek out sponsors. Many of us have been over mentored. We need sponsors, right? And cultivate diverse skills. And when I say that, I'm not saying to go back to university and earn another degree. There are so many ways, for you to earn micro credentials. Keep up with trends to know what's happening and learn those new skills so they become added value to you. They set you apart. When opportunities come, you can put up your hand and say, yes, here I am, I know this. And embrace challenges. And when I say that, if someone say to you, you know what, I think you'll be good for this position, don't start passing it off to somebody else and say, well, I think Daisy's better. Embrace it. You don't know what can happen, right? That's why one of my visioning events one year was the theme was, why not me? Because we are good, women are good at finding somebody else to do it. No, I will stay in here and I will do this and you go ahead. That particular year we said, no, we're going to embrace who we are and volunteer for stuff. When somebody said, Eve, we're hoping you will be able to take on this challenge, say yes, right there. And especially if you have the support behind you that you can tap into, by all means, go ahead. And learn to advocate for yourself. That's gonna, because if you don't speak it, if you don't tell people who you are and where you want to go, learn to advocate for yourself. And because that's how, and then learn to navigate, those barriers. So when you do that, when you advocate for yourself, when you learn to navigate those barriers, then, you will succeed. It's hard. And how I have said it might sound as if it's, it's easy. But no, if you continue to, if as women, if we continue to do this, over time, we'll see change. It might be slow, but it's coming. And like I said, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And I love why not me?
Yes.
That's such a powerful sort of statement to you feel confident. Why not me? I have done
Exactly.
all of this. I have been overtrained and mentored. I've gotten so many courses under my belt. Eventually you're ready. You're ready now. And if you're
Yes.
not ready, you will learn it as you go. So why
Exactly.
not
And
me?
many people have learned it as they went along.
Yeah.
Do you think when they promote men, or do you think when they promote a man, he knows everything? No. But we as women, we have to be perfect. We have, and I mean, I I am I'm like that in some sense. Like, if I'm working on something, I want it to, perfection is the enemy of progress because I want it to be perfect. Sometimes we have to throw caution to the wind and learn as we go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, Daisy, I want to come to the Leadership Academy.
Mm-hmm.
You're a Leadership Academy. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I can tell you a whole lot about that because it's my new baby. And what that is, and it has grown, as you know, Eve, you are actually you're familiar with the whole Let's Grow project thing that started. You were my first speaker actually at the one we had. Then it wasn't called Let's Grow project. But what I am creating is a space for mid-career professionals and emerging leaders, women, where they can hone their leadership skills, where they can learn to define their personal brand, where they can learn strategies to find their voice, to speak up. I'm trying to integrate it into for it to be a part of my coaching,
Mm,
my whole coaching. So somebody who goes through the coaching program
right,
will have access to the academy.
right.
Somebody who doesn't want to go through the coaching program, then they pay that monthly membership fee.
Okay, very good. So
Mm,
we're going to put a link in the description below to the Learning
mhm.
Academy and to your LinkedIn if you're okay with that. And
I
so
will be okay with that.
and so people will get to know a little bit more about all the amazing projects you're working on and how you lift women up every day. So, Daisy, I want to thank you so much for chatting with me. Thanks everyone for joining and listening in our conversation. Join the conversation with me and Daisy. Connect with us on our LinkedIn. I'll put the description below and we'll chat again soon. Like I said, join the conversation and let's talk. Let's talk about lifting women up and helping work become better for women at work. Thanks, everyone.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me, Eve. It has been a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to participating in other conversations
Absolutely.
that
You'll be my
may
first
come.
call, Daisy.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
All right.
Thanks for checking out our discussion today. Keep prioritizing and investing in yourself. Check out the resources below and join the conversation.